Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the fall sports parent meeting for Fassett Junior High. I appreciate, I'm Mr. Beach, the athletic director for the school district. I'm here with Mrs. Spallino, the athletic director for Fassett Junior High. And wanted to thank you for taking the time out of your day to meet with us and go through some of the slides that we have today and some of the information that we want to present to you. So without further ado, I will just continue forward. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A section. I think there's a raise your hand feature, but that does not work. I cannot see you or communicate with you that way, nor can Mrs. Spallino. She is monitoring the Q&A session. So if you do have questions, by all means use the Q&A and she will get rolling with you. So here we go. Talk a little bit about our agenda, our expectations, a little bit about our chain of command, talk a little bit about final forms, a little bit about eligibility, a little bit about fees, a little bit about COVID, spectators, and the like. Kind of set our agenda and kind of what we're looking to cover, and we'll move forward. Wanted to talk a little bit about expectations of the coach. You should expect your coaches to treat your athletes, your children, with respect. They should not be demeaning to them in any way. They should be demanding. They should be expecting or setting expectations, and they should be pushing your children out of their comfort zone in order to experience growth in the sports and growth in life. And so we would expect them to educate and focus on education and extending them out of their comfort zones. We also expect that they would communicate with parents appropriately. If they're having issues with your children, I would expect that they would communicate with you, either reaching out via email or text or picking up the phone and calling you. You should expect that. That should not be out of the norm. With regard to the athletes, we expect that those athletes are respectful to the coaches and to their teammates. More often than not, people focus on respecting their coaches. Certainly that should happen. That should be a given, even when there's disagreement. But really, one of the biggest points of emphasis I want to make is respecting their teammates. And that comes in many forms and flavors. Part of that is being unselfish. Part of that is trying to help your buddy or your teammate who may or may not be as good as you. But putting the team first is the number one thing. And respecting the game and your teammates and adopting that team first approach is what we would expect from our athletes. And we would expect them, obviously, to give maximum effort, even when they're uncomfortable. Parents, we would expect you to be supportive of your children and be unselfish. We do know and understand that your children, you're the advocate for your children. And the coaches, on the other hand, are the advocate of the team. And we're looking to teach an unselfish, team-related approach. And we would like for you folks to adopt that same approach. And it should not be all about little Johnny or little Susie. Yes, they should have a positive experience. Yes, they should have the opportunity to play, the opportunity to contribute and to grow. But in general, it is about working with others and being unselfish. We would expect that you would follow our chain of command. if you had issues, that you would talk with the coach, but respect the 24-hour rule. We would ask you not to talk with them directly after the game about issues, because that's when emotions are running the highest, and generally the resulting conversations are the poorest. So we would greatly appreciate you respecting that 24-hour rule and following the chain of command. If you don't get any satisfaction from your coaches, if you don't feel like the situation has been handled appropriately, we would ask you to then reach out to Mrs. Spallino and set up a meeting with her. Lastly, what we really want you to do above all is be a cheerleader. Enjoy the moment. Our kids in 7th and 8th grade are not in the NFL. They're not in the NBA. They are young people learning the game of life. That's the first and foremost important point. Again, I mentioned the chain of command. You meeting with the coach first if you want to talk to the coach about how your kid can get better, or if you want to talk to your coach about some issues that your child is experiencing, or things that may be impacting your child off the court. Maybe grandma or grandpa are sick, something like that, or maybe your son or daughter is going through some traumatic issues or whatever off the court. Talking with a coach about that is appropriate, because it obviously will probably spill over into their time in practice and in the games, and their attitudes, their intensity, and their performance. So it's appropriate to talk with them. Playing time at the junior high, everybody should play. Obviously, they're looking to balance everybody playing with winning. There is a bit of a balance there. You have to go back and forth with that. So it won't necessarily be equal playing time, but everybody should be playing and getting some time to develop. So playing time, coaches' strategies are really off limits at this point. Give the best player on the team the ball is not necessarily the answer for what we're looking to do. Again, teamwork makes the dream work, and that's where we're headed with that. Meeting with the coach, it doesn't solve the problem, then we meet with the AD, parent, athlete, coach, and the AD to try to resolve the issues in the best interest of the child. Moving on, I want to talk a little bit about final forms. This is where all of the athletic forms and the registration for athletics is in final forms. Our emergency medical forms are there. Every child must have one in final forms. Otherwise, they cannot compete. Obviously, for obvious reasons, if something were bad were to happen, an injury were to occur, we would not have any medical, any information in terms of treatment, and therefore that information must be housed on final forms. Sudden cardiac arrest. Most of you folks should have already put your stuff in on final forms. If you have not, you'll need to get that taken care of. Sudden cardiac arrest, that is a state mandate. That's not even an athletic mandate. That's a state mandate that you view that annually. And we hope that you didn't just sign off on that. We hope you actually took a look at that. Concussion protocols are also in final forms. Generally, that's surrounding football for the most part, but it does occasionally occur elsewhere. And the return to play information is in there, what you want them to know, because that is going to be handled by the trainer, and it will also be with your healthcare. So if somebody has a concussion, there will be concussion protocols that have to be followed. We can't just put them back in because mom and dad are comfortable putting them back in. We have to follow those protocols. So again, please review those in final forms. All of this information should be or is in there for you to view. Please don't just click through it and sign off.
Can you tell them where they can find final forms?
Final forms you can find on the athletic website. It is under the tab More, and then it should be under Health HQ, Eagles HQ. So it is on the Clay Athletic website, and it is under the tab More, and then you'll be able to see that under Eagles headquarters, and you'll see final forms link there. COVID-19 protocols, we'll talk, there's a form in there as well that you'll need to sign off of, and effectively playing sports is not mandatory. It is a choice, and it is a play at your own risk. That waiver is in final forms, and you will need to sign that as well. We have an athletic handbook at the high school, and we also have one at the junior high. This is where all of our information is required regarding consequences for bad behaviors, absentee policy, transportation, eligibility. All of those things are covered in detail in that athletic handbook. If you don't know what a smoking violation will result in, what consequence that would be, I strongly encourage you to look on the athletic handbook. You can go back in there, even if you've already signed it, it's available to you to go back in there and look at. You can look at that at any time you want and see what the consequences are for unacceptable behaviors. Absence policy, the same thing as there as well. That's a little more straightforward at the junior high than at the high school. At the high school, you have to be there at least 50% of the classes on campus. And in junior high, you just have to be there for 4 class periods. So again, that information is in the handbook, and you should take every opportunity to take a look at that. Eligibility is also in there in the handbook. I need you to understand that eligibility for athletics is based off of the quarter, the preceding quarter, not the semester. Very often we have questions and concerns that arise because a student passes the semester but doesn't pass a quarter. It is by quarter. That is not our rule. That's the state rule. So in junior high, students must pass 4 classes in order to be eligible. That's pretty straightforward. What we try to do in the district is help the kids out a little bit with regard to that. We want to keep them eligible. So we have academic checkpoints, and those occur every 2 weeks. The teachers are required to put their grades in every 2 weeks, and they have to be in on a Friday, and we'll check them on Monday to see how the prior week, or if the grades for the prior 2 weeks. And if your child is passing, great, we just move on to the next checkpoint. If they're not passing, they have to pass 4. And if they're not passing 4, they get 1 week to bring those grades up to standard. So basically they get notified, hey buddy, you're on academic watch because you're only passing 3 classes. You got the rest of the week to get that up. If you don't get that up, then at the end of the week, you'll be deemed ineligible until the following checkpoint. So again, we're giving them notice, hey, you're not meeting the standard. You need to meet the standard. Before there's any consequence, we're giving them that notification. Talk a little bit about fees. Junior high, it's straightforward, $50 per sport. Their prior year balances. So if, for example, little Johnny spiked his computer and put a big dent in it or damaged it and got a fine for that. And then that last year when he turned it in and hasn't paid it yet, those prior year balances must be paid in full before they can play in a game. They can practice, but they can't play in the game. So must make sure that all our prior year balances are paid off, and then the junior high athletic fee. Your fees are all in the parent portal. They get assessed via Power School. I do know at this time that the fall sports fees, the $50 fee for the fall sports are not entered. They're going to be entered tomorrow, I believe. That's what I'm told, is they'll be in tomorrow. So look for them on Monday to begin making payment. And you'll do that through the parent portal. COVID-19 protocols, talk about this. This is kind of a fluid situation, as everybody knows, and it's a very polarizing situation, as everybody knows. My personal opinion does not matter. I have to apply the rules, so does Mrs. Spallino, and this is where we are as we sit today. On buses, masks are mandatory. Not optional, they're mandatory. For athletic events, when they get on the bus, they must have the mask on, or the bus does not go anywhere. They have to have one to get on the bus. For practice and for games, at this point, we are not required to wear masks on the sideline. We're not required to wear masks anywhere but on the bus. We do say in practice in the games, both, we would like for you, your children to bring their own water bottle. We will provide water. We did not do that initially last year, but we will provide stations where they can fill up to get water in their bottle, but they must use their own water bottles. This year, with regard to COVID-19 positive tests or presumptive, we are no longer doing the presumptive positive. We are now just COVID positive test for quarantines. So if somebody had a symptom of the sniffles or whatever, last year we'd have sent them home and we'd have quarantined, the whole neighborhood. That is not the case this time around. This time around, we're quarantining for positive tests only. If somebody has multiple symptoms of COVID, then they'll be sent home. And there are certain scenarios that go along with that. There's a big flow chart that the district will be discussing at a later time, but be advised that quarantining will be restricted to exposure to someone with a positive test. Going to Spectators and kind of visiting where we were last year versus this year. Obviously last year it was parents only. It was extremely limited. Now we are operating at full capacity. There are no limitations to practices. There's no limitations to scrimmages. At games for spectators, recommend a mask. We do recommend them, but we are not enforcing that. So if you choose not to and you are not vaccinated, I'm not going to ask you to put a mask on. If you're vaccinated and you're walking around without one, not gonna know, because I'm not going to ask. Social distancing, we do recommend it, but again, it will not be enforced.
Can you just talk about that practices are are not open to parents. They are closed.
For,
practices.
yeah, with practices, I do want to make note, Mrs. Spallino just reminded me, at practices, those practices at this point, at the junior high are no parents at the practice. There are no spectators at practice for the junior high. Scrimmages and games, bring everybody in the neighborhood. I do want to talk a little bit about ticketing again. Last year, I know it was painful for everybody converting to online ticketing and having a code for this and a code for that. That was painful. It was painful for everybody. Within all of the conferences in Northwest Ohio and most of them throughout the state, they have moved to permanently move to online ticketing. So there'll be no tickets sold at the gate. For the junior high, your events are $4 per game, and that is one fee, one ticket price. There's no discounts for students. There are no discounts for seniors. It is $4 for everyone. Children under 5 are free. You can purchase them online at the athletic website. You can go onto the athletic website and for the junior high games, click on more. And then under tickets, and you'll see the events, the event tickets to purchase from there. Again, you can purchase on a day-to-day or game-by-game basis, or if you have children both at the high school and the junior high and it makes sense for you, you can explore our annual pass options. Individual and family passes are available on our ticket site. And I believe the individual pass, and these passes, by the way, are good for both junior high and high school events, all home events at Fassett or Clay, except any tournaments that would be held for sectionals or districts and or track championship type tournaments. So if you have a child both at the high school and a child at the junior high playing sports and you want to go, the individual pass may be your best option, $125 for the entire year, fall, winter, and spring. And the family one is $300, and that is for a family of 4. There are student and athletic passes available, and they're only available to students of Oregon City Schools and athletes of Fassett and Clay. So those folks must have a passcode. They need to be validated that they are in fact a student, and they'll get the discount associated with that. So if you have a 7th or 8th grade child who goes to a lot of, goes to some football games and a lot of basketball games, that student pass is $80. If they play a sport, whether it's in the winter, spring, summer, or excuse me, winter, spring, or fall, it doesn't matter. If they pay their fees, they can then get a code to pay for to buy the athletic passes. And the athletic passes are $25 a piece. And it's good for that athlete and that athlete only.
Talk about how they have to acquire that.
And to do that, if you want any information on passes, you can email tickets at oregoncs.org. That's tickets at oregoncs.org. Or you could call the administrative office and speak to Mrs. Hinojosa. What will happen for the student passes, if you call as a parent, you call and say, hey, I want to get a pass for Johnny or Susie, or email them that, they will confirm that in fact your child is enrolled at Clay or enrolled in one Fassett or one of the elementaries or Ike. And if they are, then they will then send a code via that child's email address back to them. So that'll be communicated back through the student's email. Athlete passes will follow a similar pattern. With regard to that, again, I mentioned that all of their prior year balances have to be paid in full, and also their current sports fee for the given season. I want to talk a little about streaming of games. The only streaming devices we have on camp are in our district are on the Clay campus, in the stadium, and in the field house. So if there are games being played, certainly there will be for football for Fassett. They will play all their games at their home games in the stadium. Those games can be streamed and will be streamed. And if there are any events in Potter Fieldhouse for volleyball, those also will be streamed as well. Those prices are set by NFHS, $10.99 for the month, or $69.99 all year. And that would not limit you just to Clay or Fassett. That would be, once you bought a pass, you could watch any game, anytime that's on the NFHS network. And then the last slide I have to go over here are fall sports pictures. Volleyball is set for September 9th at 3 p.m. Football is set for September 14th, and that'll be at Fassett. Cross country and cheerleading are set for Friday, September 17th at Pearson Park. And coaches will hand out forms at practices, and payment is due the day of pictures. With that, I have no more information to impart. If there are any questions, Mrs. Spallino and I will be happy to field them.
Can you just go over where they can pay fees at again on the parent portal?
Yeah. The question was asked to where to pay fees. Where do you pay your fees at? And those fees will be paid on the parent portal. They get loaded through PowerSchool. They will be loaded tomorrow and will be available on Monday or at the end of the day tomorrow for you to see, and then you can pay them through the portal there.
There's a question about football pictures. It's 3 o'clock at Fassett.
So I have a question about what time are football pictures at Fassett. They are at 3 p.m. on the 14th. I have a question. Is there going to be any spirit wear?
Yes, that's being set up, and that should be ready to be sent out by Monday, Tuesday at the very latest.
That is being set up, Mrs. Spallino says, as we speak, and should be available to you on Monday or Tuesday at the latest.
I'll send that out via final forms. It's at the junior high.
With regard to the scrimmage at Oak, we have a question. Where is the scrimmage in Oak Harbor at? Is it at the high school or the junior high? It is at the junior high.
That's 315 North Church Street.
And that is 315 North Church Street.
You do not have to buy tickets for the scrimmage.
The question is, do we have to buy tickets for the scrimmage? And the answer is, no, you do not for the scrimmage.
If an athlete is exposed to someone with COVID, will they be quarantined?
Question is, if an athlete is exposed to someone with COVID, will they be quarantined? If that person has a positive, if that person with COVID had a positive test, then yes. So if a football player is exposed in school, let's say Susie, let's use a cheerleader, Susie Smith is a cheerleader, and She is with her friend in school at lunch, and her friend tests positive, and Susie was with her and meets the criteria of 15 minutes within 6 feet, then yes, Susie would be quarantined. If her friend had symptoms and was sent home with symptoms, but did not have a positive test, then Susie would not be quarantined.
And where can they buy away game tickets?
When it comes to away game tickets, in general, what we did last year, we will end up doing this year. We will learn from the opposing AD. We will learn from them what their website is, and we generally will then blast that out to our team, and through final forms, we'll blast that out. That is what we've done last year. That's still what we're expecting to do this year, because it's just easier for you as a spectator and as a fan, and to have the address of where to be directed to, rather than to have to go Google it and find maybe you're at the wrong spot. So that's what we have been doing, and I don't expect that to stop. When will football uniforms be handed out?
They're going to use practice jerseys for the scrimmage, so if they don't have a uniform or a practice jersey now, they should tomorrow.
They'll be using practice jerseys at the scrimmage. They will not be using their game scrimmages. Game uniforms. They'll be using practice jerseys for the scrimmage. And then jerseys will be handed out before the week of the first game. Well, there are no other questions in the Q&A queue, so we thank you for taking your time out of the day to meet with us and to allow us to share this information with you. Good luck this fall. Hope your kids have a great fall season, and we will see you then. Take care.